The author, may Allah have mercy on him, said, Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is dedicated to clarifying the rules of cleaning oneself after defecation and urination. In Arabic, this is named Istinja, and it is a condition for the validity of the prayer, like the removal of all other unexcused filth, as will come. So, we're going to have some talk about filth, insha'Allah ta'ala, in coming chapters. Filth sometimes is excused, meaning overlooked and pardoned, and sometimes it's not. So a person has to make istinja from the unexcused filth. And when it comes to any filth that might be excused, overlooked, any filth that might be overlooked, we'll talk about it insha'Allah. Since it is a removal of filth and not a lifting of religious impurity, it does not require an intention. But if one makes a good intention, he would be rewarded. So if a person was not a Muslim and he performed istinja, then he did istinja. He removed filth. If a person was not a Muslim and he cleaned some dog filth with soil, for example, then the spot is clear. Because the removal of filth doesn't require an intention. But if you make your intention, you will get rewarded because istinja is obligatory. And the obligations are the most rewardable deeds. The Prophet ﷺ said that Allah said, وَمَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيَّ عَبْدِي بِشَيْءٍ أَحَبَّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا افْتَرَضْتُ عَلَيْهِ. It means, my slave has not done anything to get a higher status from me, to be more acceptable to me, than doing what I made obligatory on him. It means there's nothing better that a slave can do than an obligation. So the reward of the obligation is higher than the reward of something that's not an obligation. If you make an intention with the istinja, and I remind myself, then you can get reward. You would be rewarded, mashallah. In a more general expression, it is the obligatory cleaning after the emission, i.e., exiting of any wet, moist material. Thus, it includes more than just urine and feces. Anything that's moist that comes from the private parts, with the exception we'll talk about, it requires istinja, such as blood, pre-ejaculation, which is madhi, and wadi. The madhi, the pre-ejaculation, is the fluid that comes from arousal. That's for the man and for the woman. So if this happens, you need to make istinja before you pray. You don't have to perform ghusl. You only have to make istinja. And of course, make wudu. It will break your wudu if you had wudu. And the wadi, that's some substance that comes out after urinating or after straining. It resembles semen. So if that came out also, you need to make istinja. You don't have to take a ghusl. This is the judgment, meaning that istinja is obligatory from these substances because, as a rule, everything that goes into the body, transforms, and exits from the private parts is filthy. Everything that goes into the body and transforms and comes out of the private parts, then it's filthy. The definition of which will come shortly, the meaning of filth more technically, except mani. This means that the exclusion to the mentioned rule is the ejaculated fluid of men and women, because it is pure and not filthy according to Ash-Shafi'i. Therefore, it is not obligatory to perform istinja from it. From the mani, the ejaculated fluid of men and women, it is not obligatory to make istinja from that, although it is recommended. Also, by saying anything wet, we exclude what is not wet. Therefore, if someone defecated dry feces, dry and devoid of moisture, such as a sick man, then it is not obligatory to make istinja from that. Likewise, if someone passes gas without moisture, istinja is not obligatory, and in fact, not even recommended. Know that the urgency of this obligation depends on one's situation. The urgency means how fast do you have to do it? How urgent is it? Are you allowed to delay or not? If he knows of himself that if he does not perform istinja immediately, that he will stain his body or clothes, then he is obligated to perform it immediately. If he knows that he would not stain himself, then it is permissible to delay it until before performing his prayer. Also, there are details about whether or not istibra is obligatory. It is for the man to run his finger along his urethra to push out any remaining urine. If a man knows about himself that if he does not perform istibra, he will not stain his body or clothes, then it is only recommended for him and not obligatory. If he knows that his urine will drip if he doesn't make istibra, his urine will drip like after he takes a few steps, or if he were to cough, then he is obligated. Question, what was that part about delaying istinja? If a person knows that he could urinate or defecate, for example, and instead if something came out that he would not stain himself if he didn't make istinja right now. So he could urinate and his urine would just completely stop when he's done and it won't drip if he doesn't make istinja, for example. Then he's allowed to delay making istinja until before he prays, he or she. Brothers and sisters, I'm not big on he or she. So usually when I say he, it means he or she. Sometimes I only say he or she just for emphasis. Question, so mani is not obligatory to clean, correct? Because it's not najasa. If you had, let's say you fell down in the dirt and you had dirt on your knee, on your pants. Is it obligatory on you to wipe your pants off, to wipe the dirt off of it? Or let's say some soda spilled on your shirt. Is it obligatory on you to wash that shirt, for example? So it's like that. It's not najasa. Even though it's a body fluid. Let's say, for example, you sweat. You sweat on your shirt. You got a sweaty shirt on. Can you put it back on again or just keep it on? You can. Or let's say you spit into your shirt or into your scarf. Can you keep your scarf on? Yes, you can. Like that. So was that about istibra clear, brothers and sisters? So what's the judgment of istibra? It's sunnah, unless you're the type of person that if you don't do it, the urine will drip. So if you're not that type of person, then istibra is sunnah. The author said istinja is, i.e., can be performed in two ways. One, the first is to perform it with only water. In this case, one makes istinja by rinsing, i.e., pouring water, preferably with the right hand, over the soiled area, i.e., the area that is contaminated by filth, and with his hand, preferably the left, he rubs while the water flows until it, i.e., the contaminated spot, becomes pure, i.e., devoid of any filth whatsoever. Devoid of any filth whatsoever. That means zero najasa. This means that the water must remove the body of the filth and its traces, which are its color, taste, and smell. It must all be gone. If you're making istinja by water, then that's the condition. You can't leave anything. That's for the front and for the back. 2. Or else, i.e., if one does not perform it by pouring water, then the other method is by wiping, preferably with the left hand. The soiled area, wiping the soiled area, preferably with the left hand, i.e., the contaminated area, at least 3 times, even if less than 3 clears the area. At least 3 times, even if less than 3 clears the area. One must wipe no less than thrice if that is enough to clear the area. Or else, i.e., if 3 wipes are not enough, then one must wipe as many more times as needed, i.e., until the area is clean, although a trace of filth that cannot be removed by any further wipes, and instead can only be removed with water or small pieces of clay, may lawfully be left on the organ. Beyond that, if the sum of those extra wipes is an even number, after all of that, if the sum of those extra wipes is an even number, meaning you did 3, it wasn't enough. You can't do less than 3. 3 wasn't enough, so you did 1 more, and then that was enough. So it's an even number. Or it wasn't enough, so you did another one. 5, but it wasn't enough, so you did 1 more. 6, and now it's enough. So if the sum of those wipes is an even number, it is recommended to add 1 more wipe so that you end on an odd number. These 3 wipes must be by 3 different sides of whatever is being used to wipe the area. And it is not valid to return the surface that was previously used back to the organ to wipe another time with that used surface, because that is putting the contaminated material back onto the body. If what one is using does not have 3 sufficient sides, like it's not big enough, then he uses another one. Just gets rid of that one and gets another one. If it was a tissue, just gets rid of it and gets another tissue. If it was a stone, throws it away and takes another one. One must also wipe in an uprooting fashion to lift the filth off of himself, and must not wipe in a back and forth motion in such a way that he returns the contaminated item back to his organ. So it means whatever you're using to wipe, if you're making istinja by wiping, you have to turn it. So you pick up the najasa off of your body in an uprooting fashion, and then you need to turn that thing, and then pick it up again from a different side of that object, and then turn it again if there's enough space. If there's not enough space, get rid of it and get another one. Benefit. Here, the Sheikh uncovers a hidden jewel. Notice that about using water for istinja, he said that the area must become pure. And when discussing wiping, he said clean. The Arabic word for purity is tahara, as already mentioned. And the word for being clean or clear is naqa. Yes, both tahara, purity, and naqa, cleanliness, have the same linguistic meaning, which is nazafa, cleanliness. But in this context, that is, in this technical sense, in the field that we are studying together, they are different. The purity that the Sheikh refers to when using water for istinja is the water's complete removal of the bulk of the filth and its traces. Water is the tool of purity. As for mere wiping, which by itself is inferior to washing with water, it does not completely remove the filth. Rather, it can lift the bulk of the filth, i.e., its body, the body of the filth, but it leaves a trace of it because it is not water. When you use water for istinja, you need to clear everything. You cannot leave anything. It won't be valid. And how do you know when you fulfilled your obligation? Whether wiping or using water. You're obligated to wipe or use water until you think that you have completed your istinja. That's your obligation. What does that mean? Until you think that you have fulfilled the condition. Meaning, for example, if a person is wiping his backside and he cannot see back there, and as far as he can see, he cleared himself, and he doesn't think that there's anything left that he needs to wipe, then he's done. He did everything, the minimum obligation. The item he used was valid. The method of uprooting was valid. The number of wipes was valid. And he thought that he was done. Then he's done. He did his obligation. Or another example. A person is in complete darkness and has to urinate and has something for istinja. So the person urinates and doesn't have water, has something wiping for istinja, and then makes istinja in complete darkness. So when is he done? When he thinks that he has completed his istinja. So water is the tool of purity. As for mere wiping, which by itself is inferior to washing with water, it does not completely remove the filth. Rather, it can lift the bulk of the filth, i.e., its body, but it leaves a trace of it, because it is not water. This remaining trace is, in reality, a lack of purity, despite that it is allowed to be left on the body and praying is valid while it is present. That means what? That it is overlooked. That's a najasa on your body that is overlooked, excused. So, wiping can lift the bulk of the filth, meaning the body of the filth, but it leaves a trace of it because it is not water. This remaining trace is, in reality, a lack of purity, despite that it is allowed to be left on the body and praying is valid while it is present. In other words, the removal of the bulk of the filth by wiping and the remaining trace being excused is what is called being clean. But it is not what is called being pure. Right? We're talking about the Sheikh's wording in the Arabic and in the translation. The translators caught the difference and they translated it well. So when he talked about making istinja with water, he said you have to pour water until the spot is pure. When he talked about making istinja by wiping, he said you have to wipe at least 3 times until the spot is clear or clean, depending on how you want to translate it. He selected 2 different words because of the difference between how water completely removes the najasa, its bulk, and its traces, while wiping does not do that. Wiping leaves a trace. Therefore, be precise and do not say that when a person makes istinja by wiping, he has purified the spot. Instead, say as the Sheikh said, he cleaned or cleared the spot. For this reason, i.e., since the spot is not pure, the scholar said that yes, one is permitted to pray despite this physical presence of filth on his body, but if he were to submerge that spot in a small amount of water, he would contaminate all of that water. And we have not yet in these lessons here discussed the amounts of water, but it's coming, inshallah. But those of you who know this case, who have learned already about a lot of water and a little bit of water and the rules of najasa, how they affect the water, then that's what they said. They said, yes, one is permitted to pray despite the physical presence of filth on his body, meaning it's excused filth and overlooked filth, but if he were to submerge that spot in a small amount of water, he would contaminate all of that water. Like if he submerged himself in a bathtub that was a small amount of water. As for the sweat of the private part mixing with this filthy trace and then contacting the clothing, this is also pardoned, it is overlooked, it is excused, since it is difficult to avoid, and Allah knows best. So a person made istinja properly and completely and validly by wiping and thereby leaving a trace. And then the person sweat, and because of that sweat, the najasa spread. It's still excused. It is still excused in this case. If that is known, then know that istinja by wiping, which is called istijmar, is done with an object that has 4 qualities. 1. The first is that it is uprooting. This means that it must not be excessively smooth, like glass, plastic, or cane. If it's too smooth, you cannot use it for istinja. The second is that it be pure and not filthy. Whether it was filthy itself or merely contaminated by filth. Yani it can't be itself filthy, and it can't be something that is contaminated by filth. Thus, one must not use the likes of deer feces for istinja, which, although it may be uprooting like a stone, if you've ever seen deer feces, little small pellets like rocks, it is filthy. It's feces. So you cannot use that for istinja. The third is that it be solid, i.e. cohesive, not something that crumbles like a clump of soil. And it should be dry, not wet, because something moist is not used to lift moisture. You don't use something moist to pick up moisture. You use something dry. Also, liquid other than water is not valid. So don't make istinja with a baby wipe. I remember I was so surprised when I found out that it was common among Muslims to make istinja with baby wipes. I didn't know that, mashallah. There was a Muslim festival here in my city. So I went to the men's room, and all the brothers are in there, and they're like, yeah, you got a baby wipe? Oh, yeah, I got a baby wipe. Everybody has baby wipes. So I was like, wow. Subhanallah. And the fourth is that it be unrespectable. So it should not be religious papers or human food. Those are not valid for istinja. It is also invalid to perform istinja with bones. It's invalid to perform istinja with bones. Why? Because if those bones came from an unslaughtered animal, then they're filthy najasa. And you cannot make istinja with najasa. And if they are from a slaughtered edible animal, then Allah covers those bones with meat for the Muslim jinn. So it is not permissible to make istinja with bones either way. The author said, a material that meets all four criteria is such as a stone, which is what the Prophet ﷺ commanded in his hadith, or what replaces a stone, i.e. does the job of a stone, such as a paper or a cloth. Istinja may be performed in this way, i.e. by wiping with something that has the proper qualities, even if water is present, i.e. available. This means that it is not obligatory to make istinja with water. Rather, one can use water if he wishes, or wipe if he wishes, even if the water is present. However, the best is to first wipe, so that one does not have to touch the contaminated exit, and then pour water to remove the traces left by merely wiping. And not to pour water and then wipe, as some might assume. So a person might think the best way between pouring water and wiping, if you wanted to do both, a person might think that the best thing to do is to pour the water and then dry it off. So you pour the water and then you wipe. But it's the reverse of what one might assume. So the best way is to wipe first and then pour the water. Why? Because when you wipe without using water, you leave a trace. When you use water without wiping, you touch the najasa. So if you wipe first, you'll remove the body of the filth and leave only a trace that can be removed only by water. Then you won't need to touch the body of the najasa, and then you pour the water and you'll be removing the trace. If one wants to use one or the other, meaning he wants to wipe or use water, then water is better because it removes the filth and its traces. Whatever filth goes beyond the head of the penis, or reaches the mouth of the vagina, or it reaches the outside of the buttocks, which is what is apparent when one stands and the cheeks of the buttocks come together, and whatever dries before performing istinja, or it flows to a spot and then settles, it stops flowing, and then it flows anew, or something foreign contacted the spot, like head sweat, the sweat of his head dripped down to there, or olive oil, for example. Not the sweat of the private part, because that is not foreign to the area, then water must be used, and wiping is not valid. Know that staining oneself with filth is forbidden when one has no excuse. And not protecting oneself from urine is a major sin and a leading cause for being tortured in the grave. In what was mentioned here, the person is only allowed to put his hand in the urine because he is simultaneously pouring the water. So that's an excuse in that situation. And Allah knows best. We'll stop there. MashaAllah.